Hey everyone, it's Tyler Esselman.
And Michael Osinski.
And you are listening to This One Goes to 11.
It's This One Goes to 11, the podcast where we invite someone to share with us an album that they believe is perfect.
So perfect, in fact, Michael. So perfect. So perfect. That 10 out of 10 just isn't good enough.
I like that. That's we haven't done. I'm always wondering how we're going to change up the intro because we've done.
I went a little Jerry Seinfeld, yeah.
I mean that's cool. We've done over 50 of them at this point, so it's sort of like what are we going to do that's new?
Yeah, it's weird to think we talked about 50 albums.
I mean, more than that.
More than that, but like it doesn't feel like that to me at this point.
Yeah,
it's kind of it feels like we've just barely scratched the surface, which obviously we have. But it's tip of the iceberg, baby.
Yeah,
miles to go.
Only 100 more than we've listened to all the albums.
All of them.
Yeah, all of them. So we're almost there. We're close.
It's a good thing you don't teach math.
What are you saying?
Who we talking to this week? Who are we talking to?
We're talking to our buddy Noah Laufer this week.
Noah, the Midwest Misfit. Noah is your neighborly Midwest Misfit, an actor, poet, writer, and he is currently working towards being a criminal justice social worker and psychotherapist. Very exciting stuff going on for our buddy Noah. He's always looking for the next musical anomaly to jump out at him, and he is a dear longtime friend of ours, a cult follower and collaborator from our Chicago days. You can check out Noah's upcoming comedy spots and regular work with improv super team McGillicuddy, which you just might know somebody else or a couple somebodies else who are involved with that. He's on Instagram at Laufman, Laufmin, and he's also going to start making and releasing music pretty soon under his pseudonym Foxtrot. So
I did not know that.
It's new, he's gonna start to share, which I think is really exciting. Yeah. He's always playing music, but you can follow him at Foxtrot Artist on Instagram. Nothing there yet, but it will be soon. So
just realized we had a whole conversation with him about an album, and we never talked about my main experience working with him while I was at DePaul, which was, I think, heavily musically influenced. We talked about no emo in this episode.
Not a bit, but there was just too much to talk about, and
too much,
and too many years under our belts together. He's part of the fabric of our lives now, isn't he? I love it.
Much like cotton.
So, without any further ado, I think we should probably just get into it, shouldn't we?
I think we should. Let's hear from Noah.
Oh my goodness. Noah Laufer, welcome to This One Goes to 11.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you? How are you, buddy?
It's really, really good to see you guys, and thanks for having me. I love what you guys are doing with this. Seriously, it's very entertaining hearing you guys. Not just because, I consider you friends, good friends, but you guys actually have great banter and you actually come prepared.
I appreciate it. Thank you for that. This is an endeavor, it's an intentional endeavor from us, and we appreciate you taking notice of that. And we're pleased as punch to have you, buddy. This is as somebody who has shared musical taste with us for over a decade now. You and I have known each other for going on just over 12 years now, which is crazy. That's practically half our lives. It's great to have you on so we can get a little bit of your flavor in here. Listeners, since this is an auditory medium and we haven't gone video yet, you can't see the shirt that Noah is wearing today, but he came with a costume. I think he's the first person to come with a costume before the tribunal, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, I guarantee you are the first one that has costumed themselves. So, Noah, you are here before the tribunal today. Tell us, what album hath thou brought before the tribunal, and what does your shirt say?
Before the tribunal, I brought the critically acclaimed masterpiece For Emma Forever Ago by Bon Iver. And this album will blow you away.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think it's important because it does serve as the platform for Mr. Justin Vernon, aka Bon Iver, to run for president of 2024. Now, hear me out.
Which is, listeners, that's what Noah's shirt says. It says Justin Vernon, 2024.
And it's because, I'm a Wisconsin man myself. I want to represent the people, and I think he represents Wisconsin people. I think he is our sole savior of getting the Midwest hospitality and the woods and the rustic culture of it all out there.
Yeah.
And I think he's just such a simple, kind guy. I just want someone like that to be in the Oval Office.
Sure.
I need a breather.
He seems sweet, right? He seems like a sweetie. He seems
like your cool older cousin that's probably 10 years, 15 years older, and he's really into interesting stuff, like recording music in the woods with broken equipment. You go, that's what I want to do.
He's like a cousin uncle. He's my cousin, but he feels more like an uncle kind of vibe.
Unky cuz.
Yeah, that kind of thing. This is clearly a very important album to you. Your fellow state, your fellow Wisconsin brother. The connections here are very clear. But for those listeners out there who may not know who Bon Iver is, who is, in the words of some tweet I saw when he won a Grammy way back in the day, who the fuck is Bon Iver? For those people who want to know who the fuck Bon Iver is, we have a segment that is designed just for them. And Michael, what is that segment called?
That segment is called A Beginner's Guide to Bon Iver's Forever Ago in 60 Seconds.
And today, Michael will be putting himself through his paces. I mean, I guess you've undertaken the challenge of condensing Bon Iver down to 60 seconds. How do you feel about this one?
Not great, honestly. because it was just, he feels sort of... He's not a mystery, but there's something kind of mysterious about him, and there is information about him, but trying to it was weird. In some ways, I feel like it's easier when it's someone who's been around for a while. You can at least break it down into chapters. Whereas I was sort of I'm not quite sure what direction to go in, and the way he's done his career, he's kind of bounced in and out of things. So it's there's not a straight trajectory. I've tried to apply one. This isn't my best work. I don't mean to preface it that way, but we'll see how this goes.
Noah, you are going to have a chance to assess, to grade Michael on the job that he does. So make sure you listen carefully, because the points are very, very important. I cannot stress enough the pedagogy of this very podcast rests on your shoulders in this moment, Mr. Laufer.
Okay, that's not intense.
So, Michael, I have 1 minute on the clock. Are you ready?
All right, I'm ready.
You're starting in 3, 2, 1, go.
Eau Claire, Wisconsin's own Justin DeArmond Edison Vernon left his band in North Carolina, broke up with his girlfriend, suffered a major health scare, and moved back to Wisconsin to live in his father's cabin in late 2006. He didn't intend to write or record any music, but soon he found himself doing just that. Vernon sang lead vocals with his trademark falsetto, Eat Your Heart Out, Justin Timberlake, and then pulled a Dave Grohl playing all the instruments himself. The name Bon Iver, an intentional misspelling of the French words for good winter, came from the TV show Northern Exposure, which he watched while recuperating. The album, titled Forever Ago, was meant to be a collection of demos before Vernon decided to print 500 copies to distribute. And once Pitchfork got their hands on it, forget about it. It would cement the band as an indie folk mainstay, and Vernon would invite other musicians to join him on the second Bon Iver album, self-titled, which won Grammys for Best Alternative Album and Best New Artist. And Vernon has since worked with lots of other artists, including both Kanye West and Taylor Swift, as well as Anais Mitchell, Tony Award-winning writer-composer of Hadestown.
Ooh, baby.
That was actually very well done. I felt I could feel your frustration when you were reading it. You go, well, here's Justin DeArmond Edison. What a guy!
Say what you will about the content of Michael's 60-second intros, but he always nails the time. Always. If you have to put a score on it or a grade, any terms you want.
I'm gonna give it an 8.8.
8.8 out of
10.
Okay.
Only thing is just the attitude.
I wasn't mad at Bon Iver. I was mad at myself for not coming out. I mean, I'll take the 8.8 because I know that it was
8.8's
not
pretty good.
I would say, in all honesty, that's in fairness, because I know that's just self-critical. I'm going to bump, it's a 9.
Oh,
I'm going to bump it to a 9. No, we're not doing decimals. I'm going to bump it to a 9. No, it was very well summed.
You're rounding it up. Great. So that's a 9 out of 10 on the board. And that will contribute to your case, Noah, your case for the perfection of this album.
But before we dive too deep into the album itself, we like to step back a little bit and ask our guests, what's your relationship with music today, yesterday, in the future? I don't know. Maybe you can predict the future. Who knows? Yeah. What's your relationship with music on a large scale?
I mean, like many other people, it's an incredibly paramount aspect of my life. If I had a question like going blind or deaf, I'd go blind.
Okay. 3,000 points for that. That's
I mean, and it's a hard question because, in all honesty, it's neither. But...
I'm writing 3,000 points for I'd go blind.
But no, I mean, I got introduced to music really young. My dad he's very into classical music and symphonies, and my mom was much more of kind of Laurel Canyon folksy rock kind of lady, like Joni Mitchell and Crosby, Stills, Nash, and like James Taylor. So they would get me into those things. And then my brother, who was just a complete left turn, was into the industrial rock scene. Mm-hmm. And for me, kind of having all these different things overwhelm me, I tried just finding my own route. So I had my mom buy me NSYNC's No Strings Attached.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, me and my neighbor would dance all the time and pretend to be the puppets.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Oh, it was a phenomenal time.
So was this you taking a stance? I don't know if we've talked much about this on the pod. Like, when, and this was our generation, right? You had to choose basically whether you were Team NSYNC or Team Backstreet Boys. My first album, the first CD I ever received as a gift was Black and Blue by Backstreet Boys. So I kind of by default was on Backstreet Boys' team. But was this a conscious choice? You wanted NSYNC. You were planting your flag in the NSYNC territory.
I was planting my flag in the I'm gonna be in a boy band territory.
Okay, yeah.
I thought at that age too, and I still have that performative spec. I just was like, these guys are showing it all and are clearly talented. I don't know why people are making fun of him or them. Yeah. But I started with Backstreet Boys, but I think NSYNC came first. It was 98 Degrees, then Backstreet Boys, and then NSYNC.
98 Degrees.
And I think it was just because NSYNC was the new thing that I got into it.
I do sort of feel like your trajectory was upgrading, though.
It was.
Sort of feel like 98 to Backstreet to NSYNC. Yeah.
Yeah. No one's talking about 98 Degrees anymore. But then my brother really honestly made fun of me for it. I mean, he's 3 years older than me.
Come on, Saul.
Saul, I get it. He has a very eclectic taste and he is very talented. But he's 10, so he doesn't know anything at this point.
Sure.
But he forces me to go to a Borders, and this is the very first time I bought an album. And he said, I'm going to show you a bunch of CDs. Find the one that you connect with the most. And he didn't offer to buy. He says, do you have money on you? And I go, yeah. He goes, okay, good, because you're going to get this album.
Damn.
And it was Alien Ant Farm's anthology.
Oh, shit.
And that has that cover of Smooth Criminal.
Oh, I'm familiar.
Oh, yeah. It was a real hell of a banger in 2000.
Whoa,
and
yeah.
That album was the moment that I started discovering music on my own, because I didn't necessarily look at that album and think, this is my way, this is my route where I'd like to go. But it opened the doors of experimenting with different genres and how they could fuse and hearing, exactly what I would connect to. So I actually got to give him props, but the album in whole is terrible. But the Smooth Criminal is fantastic.
There were a lot of bands in the early 2000s, though, that they had a hit, and then you bought the album, and you're like, oh, I'm only going to listen to this one song.
I always think of that band Drowning Pool.
Drowning Pool.
They have a song like the bodies hit the flow.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
yes.
God.
Where else is their entire discography? I honestly don't know anything else. I'm sure if I could recognize the guy's voice, but that's the only song I definitely bought that album because of that song.
All right, I gave you 7,000 points for NSYNC's No Strings Attached being the album that you requested. I gave you 3,500 points for invoking Alien Ant Farm in their cover of Smooth Criminal, and then I'll give you another 6,000 points for what was that band for Bodies Hit the Floor? What was that?
Drowning Pool.
Drowning Pool. God, I would have never been able to pull that out.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So you got some stuff stuffed in that brain there that we all forgotten.
To offer our listeners a little background on us three, which I think could be illuminating. We are all graduates of the theater school at DePaul University, and that's where we met. Noah and I were in the same undergraduate class there around the same time. Michael was doing his master's there, so you and I met when we were 18 years old, and
I was 19, I think.
You're a little bit older than I am. Yeah, you're a few months older than I am.
I'm sorry, I'm doing that little kid thing. I was 19.
I'm the older one.
Yeah,
it's important. It's important.
Well, you were one of the oldest by birthday in our class, and I remember Noah immediately. Listeners was kind of like the music, one of the music guys in the class. Kind of you and Wes held court in your dorm quite often, and there would be music playing or a movie playing or something like that, and you'd be like, "Oh, did you hear about this shit? Oh, did you hear about this?" And I almost never knew any of it. You always had something crazy to pull out.
And I don't want it to come off I'm like a music snob, because I'm not. It's just I really do enjoy like different kinds of music, and if it just happens to be one genre that I didn't expect, it just happened to. For some reason, I connected with it, whether it be it just was a good arrangement or whether for some reason enjoyed it.
It never felt like snobbery. It never felt like it always felt like, how does he know about these things?
I always felt like nervous that it would be like I genuinely was just like excited to talk about a band. And Wes and I definitely like vibed off of each other. That
friend of the pod, Wesley Toledo,
and he did Metallica, I think. Right?
He sure did. Yeah.
He sure did.
Of course, he did.
That was a good one. Yeah.
It was weird though. One of his other albums he had was not Metallica at all. It was Sufjan Stevens. Yeah.
Sufjan Stevens?
Yeah.
Wes surprises me. He whenever, because we'll catch up every once in a while, and he'll surprise me, especially with his track in Post Animal. I think it's just kind of, he grew up with such a heavy hitting drum sound. Mm-hmm. All the time with his dad. So I think once he started playing his own music, he was like, oh, wow. Like he started checking out a lot of music that I had never heard of, that I was a completely different genre of the heavy metal that he was introducing me to.
Yeah, you two have always been kind of people I admire for their open-mindedness about music. And, one of the Noah, dear listeners, to continue the narrative, Noah and I lived together for many years off campus as well, and shared many long evenings listening to music. And another one I closely associate with you is Todd Rundgren. That's another
Todd Rundgren was a big one with my mom.
Yeah.
I got introduced to, I have very distinct memories of like when I was a little kid, like going to the Marcus Performing Arts Center, which is like the big performance hall in Milwaukee. Like when I was going to do like a Christmas Story or something, and my mom would like take me to rehearsal after school, and she'd be always playing Todd Rundgren's like best of. Mm-hmm. So I just have all these like memories of her like bobbing her head with this like 10-year-old next to her, just going, "We gotta get you a woman." And I remember just being like, who is this for?
What are you trying to say, Mom?
Well, because she'd be bopping and feeling it, and then she'd do a side view.
She'd look at you.
Eye, and I go, give it some time.
How much of this are you comprehending? That's what that side eye was, probably.
I think my mom and I were closer in terms of relativity in music. Mm-hmm. And when she introduced me to that kind of like Todd Rundgren, like the Joni Mitchells and James Taylors, I did appreciate kind of the softer side of where the people around me I was exposed to, like the pop music I liked, or like what my older brother was showing me. And so to kind of have this grounded thing with your parents who, are your superheroes at the time growing up, it's like that kind of definitely instilled this like basis of there's this stillness and calmness in folk music that I know for me, I get, I have I get amped up and I need to remind myself to calm down and take a moment to breathe. And and really, really just take a step back. And and I think that's just that was the beginning of it. But yeah, Todd Rundgren was huge.
Todd Rundgren seems like he sort of seems like a musician's musician. Is sort of how he's got that vibe about him, right? He's like your favorite musician's favorite musician.
Yeah, and he's definitely served as an inspiration to other artists that I see now. Is he Liv Tyler's dad, or is it Steven Tyler?
Steven Tyler.
Oh, okay.
Steven Tyler. I think it was that she thought Todd Rundgren was her dad for a long time. If I'm remembering this correctly. By the way, I gave you 12,000 points for the stillness and the calm of folk. I want to hear about how you discovered this album in particular. So to set the scene, this album came out in 2008, right? So we were in high school. Do you remember where you were when you first heard it? Do you remember what the avenue was that led you to discovering the album? Set the scene for us a little bit.
I believe when it came out, I was end of freshman year. I was in my French class. A buddy of mine, Ben Smith, the phenomenal anomaly.
The phenomenal anomaly.
Phenomenal anomaly.
I like that.
He was very quiet in French class, and I didn't really know him. He's one of my best friends now, but he and I bonded over jazz music, oddly enough. And then Ben, one day, he doesn't play as much, but he used to play the mandolin. And so he was always kind of around this music. And he had looked at what Michael mentioned, the Pitchfork review. And he had a subscription or something. And he mentioned it to me. And then I listened to the album and I liked it at first, but I knew I had to listen to it again. Yeah. Which I think you should do if you really want to get to know it.
I had that feeling when I first listened to it too. I was like, I don't think I get this yet. But
I didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I'm wholeheartely admitting it. I was like, this sounds cool, and I want to attach myself to it.
I'm making note of that. You didn't get it right away. Okay.
I did not get it. And there's a good reason to it. But first, after I'd listened to it once, before I went back to it again, I just searched him in YouTube, and he had his first television performance on Live with Jules Holland. And
yes.
BBC.
Later with Jules Holland, right? Yeah.
Later with Jules Holland, right? And it was within, I think it was in 2008 still, and he gives this performance of Skinny Love that all of a sudden I got it. I heard what he was trying to say. I literally I would recommend this to anyone to go search Bon Iver Skinny Love Later with Jules Holland. Because there's a moment before the final chorus, he lets out this howl that really summarizes what the album was just trying to explain with him. And it's his personal story. I get it. So it's like you can identify with things or find things that you can attach to, but it's not always going to be relatable and understandable. It's his story too.
Yeah.
I could hear his pain. I could hear him trying to get over whatever kind of mediocrity he felt for his failures of the band in the past. And you could hear him trying to keep moving forward. That after seeing that live performance, I genuinely became a devoted cult following fan.
That's such a good venue for artists too. We've talked about a few of Radiohead's performances on Later with Jules Holland, and honestly, if I can find the video on a reputable website, then I will include it in the episode description. Become harder to find clips from Later with Jules Holland.
I noticed that. I don't know.
The BBC, they're pourful, so they can kind of do what they want, I guess. But
BBC and the almighty dollar.
Yeah, it's the almighty dollar, guys.
Yeah, so that was kind of how I got introduced to it, and then throughout all of high school, I carried that album with me until when I eventually had my own band my senior year, and we did Skinny Love. And I'm very hesitant to say it, but I'll do it. You can find it on YouTube.
Hey!
All right. It's going in the
description. You got like an 18-year-old Noah being like,
you put it out there.
Milwaukee, I'm going to Chicago. I'm going to go be a star with Michael and Tyler.
What was your band's name again?
Oh gosh, the Jam Theory.
The Jam Theory, right? Yeah. Yes. Okay, I got to tell you the points you got. I gave you 25,000 points for I got you 25,000 points for Ben Smith, the Phenomenal Anomaly. Say that 10 times fast, right?
I'm going to tell him about this.
Oh yeah. He's getting a shout out. 50,000 points for Skinny Love on Later with Jules Holland, and 60,000 points for the Jam Theory. Check the episode description for a taste of that, listeners.
Gotcha. How many points do I need to get the big purple dinosaur? That's all I need.
You're close to purple dinosaur level, I would say.
God,
you're not quite there yet, so keep it up.
Okay.
Did you ever watch any of the takeaway shows? The Blogotech
yes.
takeaway shows? Michael, did you ever see any of those?
Yeah.
This is my first time hearing about this.
Oh my God! Michael, you'd love them. They're
cool.
Especially the one with Bon Iver. I found really. I mean, there's two of those that stand out, but Bon Iver stood out. Them just casually walking around the streets of France.
That's essentially it, listeners. For those of you who don't know it, they're these little impromptu shows, kind of guerrilla style on the streets of Paris or in little buildings in Paris. It's so 2009. It's crazy. Yeah.
Those are remarkable performances. But again, I think that kind of ties in with those, like with seeing him live. There is something, I feel like it's with anything you see live, you get, the aesthetic you wouldn't get from just listening to it. And you wouldn't get that. This is literally happening right now, this one concert, this time at this day. And then, he moves on and does another show that'll be completely different, even if he has the same set list.
I think really good artists are better live, because I think that, there are artists out there who are just recording artists and they just stick to the studio. And, there are a couple bands I enjoy who I think sometimes their studio album sounds better.
I think Steely Dan's like that.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my favorite artists are the ones who when you go see them live, it all makes sense. I mean, in the first season, I talked about Slater-Kinney it wasn't until they recorded The Woods that it was this album sounds like the way that they sound live. Mm-hmm. And I think that, I guess it's sort of rare when the studio can really capture that, or it's something different. Like if it's a pop act and when you see them live, I wish I could have seen Beyonce this summer on that tour. She's going to be performing the songs the way they were recorded.
I don't know if there's a band, Michael, for you that stands out, but I recently, I was listening to this one band called Sunlux. I don't know if you've heard of them.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, so they have a very unique sound. They use a lot of synths, and they use a lot of variety of percussion instruments. And the recordings are great, and I love the guy's falsetto, but I just saw a clip of them live, and it bummed me out.
Oh, really?
It was one of those things where I wanted, like what you said, I wanted the band to be, even better live because their records were great. Whereas, that was my expectation. Whereas with Beyonce, I would kill to see the show because I feel like you're going to see her do what she does best, and the whole package, it's the kind of style of it, and it is going to be those songs and pop songs. Yeah. It's going to sound the same, but that's the show.
It's fine balance. It's a fine balance.
Another band that's kind of in the vein of Bon Iver that also is even better live than on an album that you wouldn't expect it is Grizzly Bear.
Agreed.
Really?
Agreed.
I can see it, but it's not something that would pop into my head at first. But yeah.
Yeah, they were really good. They were really good live.
When did you see them live?
I saw them when they were playing a small stage at Lollapalooza back in maybe 08.
I think that was 08.
I think actually.
That was the Radiohead year, right? That was Radiohead, Rage Against the Machine.
The Radiohead year. And then I saw them at a place called the Trocadero in Philadelphia, which R.I.P. Trocadero. It was one of the best concert venues, and they were a small venue. You could get pretty close to them, but they were pretty solid. Yeah, and I was very impressed
because their breakout album was that
Vecatimist,
Vecatimist.
I think it's Vecatimist.
Vecatimist, yeah.
It's a place. I think
they want us to be having this conversation.
Yes, they do.
So if you're out there, Grizzly Bear.
You know what's crazy though? One of the lead singers or lead artists in the band, I think he now is doing This also fascinates me too. When musical artists stop doing the band thing, like what do you do?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think if I'm not mistaken, one of them is like becoming a real estate agent or something like that.
No
I'm
way.
like-
Is it the drummer?
I'm like, it
Is
just
it the drummer?
no, it's one of the lead singers.
Well, Daniel Rawson just had an album come out last year, I think, or maybe this year. Is it Ed Drost? I think it might be Ed Drost.
Yeah.
it's Ed Drost.
Yeah.
It's Ed Drost. Yeah.
Drost started his own independent practice as an associate therapist in LA.
Or sorry, therapist, not real estate agent. Yeah,
Close enough.
There you go. I mean, it's massaging a different sort of thing.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, this is the subject for a whole other episode of the podcast, but more power to him, I say. More power to him.
Oh yeah, not meant to be a diss, just a thing
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated by. That like what's Spoon gonna do? What's Britt Daniel from Spoon gonna do when he has to
Dude.
retire?
That I love that you asked that question. That I almost brought on that one of their albums.
That's another band for you, yeah. I
Yes,
associate that one with
actually,
you.
Michael, Spoon by far is one of the best live shows I've seen. I don't know.
Really?
I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the fact that they performed at Summerfest on this small stage, and Summerfest has like 10 stages. And so they had a really small, I mean, God, this is like 15 years ago. Again, it was one of those bands where I had heard about them. I knew that they had a couple big songs.
Mhm.
Like I turned my camera on and
Great song.
then great song. But I heard it and it just clicked. It's just some algorithm I cannot fathom and understand. It just,
Yeah.
ever since then I was like, again, a diehard fan.
I saw them once in a bad venue, so I
Oh,
did
really?
not. The only time I've seen them, it wasn't great, but just because the acoustics were bad and it was it was in Chicago. I want to say, is there like a Moody's pub? Is
Yep.
that a
Yeah, Moody's
Place.
Pub.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was not good.
Oh.
But it wasn't. I don't think it was their fault. I think it was acoustics. But we got to listen to some Bon Iver here. So what would you mind telling us? What have you chosen as your standout track from this album?
Right. So for this standout track, I have brought Creature Fear.
We'll ask you why afterward, but are we gonna give the listeners Creature Fear and Team? Is that what we're gonna do?
I think we got it because they flow right into each other, and it sort of feels like we'd be like. I actually listened to just that song by itself on Spotify, like the one play, and it ends really weirdly. So we gotta give them Team.
Well then, listeners, this is Creature Fear and Team from For Emma Forever Ago by Bon Iver. We'll see you in just a second. That's the end of part 1. If you access this episode via our YouTube playlist, you're about to hear our guest's standout track. If you'd like to jump ahead to part 2, you'll find a link in the description of this episode.